All we need is a little understanding. Walk a mile in their shoes. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life.
Okay, we're live. So, hi everybody. This is Annette with the True Sweet Hide podcast, and so I'm a little nervous because today we have a very special guest. It's a soldier that I served with back 2008. So for 2020, it's been quite a number of years, but we have been talking about her story for quite a few years, and I'm just really proud of her because it takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage to be able to be on a platform like this, to share such intimate and deep parts of your life. So I want you to make sure you're tuning in, make sure you're listening, make sure you share this so that we can continue to help more people hear her voice and share her story in order to provide hope for others. So thank you so much, Paige, for being on here. I'm really proud of you. So this is like really nerve-wracking and exciting and just like all the things. So let's go back. Where do you want to start? Because your story, your journey started from when you were a child, but we will talk about wherever you want to start from, because I know that there's future work for you with book writing and blogging and all the things. So we don't want to give everything away, but we do want to share your story and how you got here.
I guess starting for me, it's kind of hard because it's like the same problem I have when I sit down to write. It's like I have so much to say, you don't exactly know where to start and you end up jumping around. But I think it's important to start this specific conversation with, first I want to thank you. We met back in 2008 and, you were an influence in my life then, but it was after like we separated from being at the same duty station that you continued and even like became more of an influence. And I wouldn't be where I am today without you. I mean, even I was going through probably one of the hardest times in my adult life, coming to terms with being a victim. And it was like out of nowhere. It was like you could just sense and feel I was going through something, and you just randomly texted me. And I think we hadn't talked for maybe 2 years at that point. And you were just like, hey, I just want to check on you. And that was like a life-changing moment for me because I was like, holy crap, like somebody cares. And I just opened up, and that really started my healing process whenever you reached out to me. And I've been your greatest silent fan, cheering you on from the back ever since then. When you were getting a wild ride for life started, and like it helped me just knowing that you had a story that you were trying to share, and you were reaching out to people, helping them be comfortable with who they were and what they've gone through. So I guess starting there, just thank you, Annette, for doing everything that you do for everybody. So that's like the biggest thing for me, but I mean, when we start talking about my trauma, it's like, I don't know where to start because I was born on.
Well, I appreciate those words because I know how hard it is to even put this out into the public. And so to even begin talking about that part of your life is like, holy crap, I don't know. For me, it was the fear of judgment on people. I didn't want pity. I guess I was just frustrated, and anger was like all these feelings. So you started really being able to open up. When did that start?
Near the end of my time in the military, there's quite a few things that contributed to it. It was you reached out to me, before I even thought about getting out of the military. And then I reached back out to you whenever, my military time was ending. But, it was like you reached out to me. I'm in an amazing relationship now. I have the best husband who is my absolute best friend. So that helped a lot. And then another big thing was finding a therapist that I just clicked with, that I was able to actually open up and tell everything to. As bad as it is to say, the therapist I had before that, I tried talking to him, and I was ready to start trying to tell somebody, and the way he responded to it was almost as an abuser. And it was just kind of like mind blowing. Maybe that wasn't his intention. I hope that wasn't his intention, for crying out loud. But, when someone has gone through some of the things that I have, the littlest thing can be a trigger. And I got triggered by my own therapist. So that stopped the process cold for a couple of years. And it wasn't until I was, kind of coming near my end in time in the military, that I really found a therapist I could open up to. So that was kind of a big changing point for me.
Yeah. That's I went through several therapists as well, and they just didn't do it. I don't know. It's like
Mhm.
I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew it wasn't coming from them. So it
Yep.
was just frustrating. So I try to tell people not to give up on finding one, but it's going to be a process.
Right.
If you really want one, just I don't know. It's so hard because I think that's one of the reasons why soldiers don't, or maybe not just soldiers. I think a lot of people don't want to go talk to a therapist because they don't want to have to go through that hassle. So
Mhm.
it's really unfortunate, but there are good ones out there. So I'm glad that you found one that actually helped you speak out.
Yeah, and then the good ones, that good one may be different for everybody, because I know, I had a soldier reach out to me asking for help, and I'm like, this is my therapist, and she changed my life, and I gave her the therapist's name, and she didn't click with that therapist. It wasn't that obvious she's not a bad therapist. She helped me tremendously,
Yeah.
but that soldier was like, no, not for me, you know,
Right,
not what she needed. So I think you're absolutely right in saying that, just keep looking, keep looking until you find them.
right. So you started sharing parts of your story, parts of your life. You found your best friend, which is amazing because I know the struggles you had before. How was it to let that all out and just I mean, did you just choose what you wanted to say or did it just all come out?
It just all came out. Like, it was like an open faucet that wouldn't shut off. When it started to come out, it just came out. And it did come out first. Well, honestly, I have two best friends. I have my best friend I married, and then I have, my very best female friend in my life, who we shared things with each other even before the therapist, because we just had such a similar story, similar background. So, like, we could almost share something with each other without even saying the words. We just knew.
Yeah.
So it was great having that friend, but then getting to share that with my significant other was kind of life changing too. After I kind of became an open faucet to my therapist, I got brave enough to tell my husband, and he didn't even flinch. He didn't care anything I'd been through in the past, because he knew that, like, that's not one, like, your past helps create who you are, but it doesn't necessarily define you. And like, he doesn't base me off of things I went through or decisions I made, because let's be honest, like, when you have a big past, it's not always necessarily something that happened to you. You could be making bad decisions. And some of that was, I made bad decisions. So one, own up to things you've done, but also you don't have to put everything on your shoulders.
That
You
is
don't have to own up to more than what you did.
yeah. No, I really love that you said it doesn't have to define you because there's so many people who go through trauma that feel like that's them and that they're not good enough to be seen any other way than that ugly part of what happened to their life in their life.
I would
So
not change a thing I've gone through in my life, not a single thing, because I am really proud of who I am today.
that's
So,
huge.
and I went through some stuff, and here I'll kind of hop into, like, some of my childhood stuff. I grew up My parents were drug addicts. They were always gone. They cared more about their personal life than they did their kids. I remember my parents fighting when I was super young, and they split up when I was in about kindergarten. I remember my mother told me, I have two older brothers, they're like 8 and 10 years older than me, and they both went to live with my dad. And my dad, when I was younger, he walked on water to me. I actually started a blog that I stopped paying for the domain because I wasn't writing enough, but it was called like Losing a Hero Part 1, like when you realize your parent is not who you think they are type thing. But anyway, long story short, my mom was like, I was, like 5 or 6. She's like, oh, nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. I could just fall off a cliff and nobody would care. So I stayed with her. I didn't go with my dad. Would things have been different if I'd gone with my dad? To be honest, probably not, because looking back, he was not the parent I thought he was at the time. And that becomes evident later on in life. So then, I lived with my mom, and she was, oh, something. Like, I'm talking like she would sleep for days, or she'd be, doing drugs. She'd be awake for days. She would go out for days. I was probably like 7, and we were at the river once, and she's like, all right, I'm just going to walk down the shore a little bit. I'm 7. Like, this blows my mind to this day. I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. I was 7 years old, and she left me unattended by water. Like, I don't even leave my 12-year-old unattended by water, And she goes to walk down the shore. I didn't see her for 3 days. I literally hitchhiked home at 7 years old, had some strangers that were at the river take me home. I didn't see her for 3 days. I constantly took care of myself. I fed myself. I fed the dogs. I did my own laundry. Like, I brushed my teeth. I don't even know how, like, I did this stuff. It was just, for me, the only way to survive was to be smart enough to just figure out life. So that was just kind of like the type of person my mom. And she shows up 3 days later and she's like, hi, here I am. Like, oh, good, she's alive. Like, what do you do?
That's incredible. I can't imagine. I think the first thing that pops into my mind, and it just, for me, I've tried to lean on God more. I think that's God totally it was watching over you, because that is scary. So
It's I'm gonna say funny. It's weird that you mentioned God, because I remember literally so many times in my childhood, I would curl up in a ball and shake and cry and rock back and forth and crying to my knees, wondering why nobody loved me, why nobody cared about me. And I remember so clearly thinking, like, if God exists, why is he doing this to me? Why am I going through this? Why does nobody love me? I had straight A's in school. I was in gifted and talented programs. I had like 120 something IQ in the 2nd grade. They wanted to skip me a grade. And instead, my mom beat the hell out of me and taught me how to forge her signature, so I didn't have to bother waking her up to sign my report card to just see all A's again. It's like, I laugh at it now because, like, one, my childhood doesn't really affect me at all anymore. Some of my later adult life trauma I'm still working through. But my childhood, I literally just look back and I'm like, that is why I am who I am today.
my God.
But and God's kind of, I went many years as a rebellious teenager. I don't know what I was rebelling against other than, just life in general, because my parents didn't care enough for me to rebel against them. But I thought I was an atheist. I was like hardcore, like, God doesn't exist. He wouldn't put me through this. I'm definitely past that phase, I should say. And I do believe now, I consider myself agnostic. I believe in something.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in a higher power. I believe something's watching over me. I believe things happen for a reason. When I pray, I do pray to God because I don't have a better name for it. But I'm not necessarily reading the Bible following, the story. So
Right.
I do have beliefs,
Right.
I do think that someone had to be watching out for me.
Right. So you went through all that and you decided to join the military. So
Yeah.
what made you decide to do that?
a little, let me tell a little bit more before I got to the military part.
Yeah.
We can kind of see how I got to the military part. More things with my mom. It was, so I remember she had this boyfriend at one point in time who held me and her hostage in her house for 3 days, literally held a knife to her throat and made her perform oral sex on him in front of me. So like just those types of things. And then I remember it was coming Monday for school, and I used to miss a lot of school. Whenever you're a young kid and you got to get yourself off to school, you end up missing a lot. Still had straight A's though. But she told me, she's like, you're gonna be late. I missed the bus. So I missed the bus. And then, she played it off as like, I got to take her to school. She's missed almost 30 days. We've gotten enough truancy letters. So she drove me to school at knife point, I was in the car, and then he was like, you got 10 seconds to sign her in before I come in there, and I'm just going to start slicing everybody's throats. So like I remember getting like hurried into the office, and then she real fast told him what's going on and then left. And like I'm sitting with the counselor all day and everything. I'm guessing the police went and, I don't know, surrounded the house or something. I kept thinking like, who's going to come back and get me and let me know everything's okay. Nope. I rode the bus home. I get home. He's not there. I didn't see him for years. And then she's not there either. I was home alone. I used to get left home alone all the way back in kindergarten. But yeah, I didn't see her. Like she didn't come in until late that night, past my bedtime. Like she just came in high and started vacuuming at 2 a.m. and, like, so yeah, this is part of, like that was my childhood. So what happened with my mom, right before I turned 10, I was in the 4th grade. She got in a car accident. She fell asleep behind the wheel, drifted off the road at about 50 miles an hour. And she was in an 87, 88 Pontiac Grand Prix. It had T-tops. It was one of those big old boat cars. She did have her seatbelt on, but the front metal corner of the windshield caved in and hit her head, and it shattered her skull in tiny fragments, and those fragments punctured her brain, and her brain actually started to swell outside of her head. And I struggled with that for a while because, and then when I tell you this next part, your mind's really going to be blown. But it was very common for my mom to be high or drunk or unable to drive. I literally started driving her around at 8 and 9 years old. I'm sitting there driving this little, she had a 91 Accord for the longest time too. I'm sitting there, stacked up on books, driving this car around with my drunk mom in the seat. And I remember that day coming home from school. That was the year I was going into 5th grade. I was about 10 days into 5th grade. We got lockers that year, it was kind of a big deal. And as I'm walking up from the bus, she like pulls up. She's like, "Hey, I'm going to Pacific. I'm going to do this, whatever. Are you coming?" I was like, "No, I'm not." Usually I would, because she's probably going to need someone to drive her home. But I had homework, and I'm like, no, like I'm done. Like I'm going to focus on myself. And so I go in, I'm doing my homework, and then it was like, it's weird. I remember this. I remember looking at the clock. It was 8:23 p.m., August 23rd of 1999. It was when my mom got in her car accident. Well, that was when her boyfriend flies in the driveway and starts honking on the horn and, yells for me to come out. So I come out and I hop in the car, and I knew something was up, not just because he was frantic, but he told me not to lock the house. Now, granted, he was a huge meth addict, and he even cooked meth at our house. So, like when we locked our house when we left, it wasn't just a door handle. It was a door handle, a deadbolt, 2 padlocks. Like, it was kind of insane. And I was like, okay, I started to get scared, and it was not even a mile away from the house where she drifted off the road at. And he like pulls up there. There's already an ambulance there. He like drags me up to the car, and he's like, "Tell me that's not your mom's car." And they had already gotten her in the ambulance, but I saw her mangled car and the blood flowing down. So that changed my life for the first time. And then I went to live with my dad, and I thought, oh, things are going to be great. I'm going to live with my dad finally, because I thought my dad walked on water. Well, guess what? Shocker. No, he didn't. So I'm living with him, and he's got a girlfriend who's got 3 daughters. And I don't want to say something to sound like, conceited about myself, but I was naturally good at just about everything. I was athletic, I was skinny, I was smart, I made friends easily. Her daughters were not. So it was instantly them against me. It was constantly like I wasn't allowed to talk on the phone besides once a week, and my grandparents were considered once a week. I wasn't allowed to like go to friends' houses. Like it was crazy, super controlling. And then as I started getting 6th and 7th grade, it was like, oh, she's a whore. She's over there. My friend told me she was up at the bus stop flashing her tits to boys. And I was extremely, that's something about me, I was extremely flat chested until I had kids. And like, that was one thing that I got made fun of for, my big nose and my flat chest. Plus I was kind of athletic. So I was always one of the guys. I remember like the one time she accused me of that. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like I get made fun of for this. Why would I be showing this to people so they can make fun of me more? And she's like, ah. I mean, it got so bad, and my dad knew this was happening. Her daughter would like write like letters that were from boys, and she would find them in my underwear drawer, like saying like, and I was still pretty prude at this age. And then it was like, oh, she found thong underwear in my drawer, and like I still had like 101 Dalmatian Hanes underwear, like where's this coming from? I used to like to draw when I was younger. I remember like her daughter like would steal my sketchbook and like pass it off as her own. So it was really like this whole thing. I know one time she used to get mad that her 3 daughters had to go to their dad's house every other weekend, and I had nowhere to go, and that wasn't fair. So my grandparents started taking me every other weekend, which I absolutely loved. My grandparents and my aunts and uncles are my saving grace. I never told anybody how bad things were. And I think that was kind of like the beginning of like the self-depreciation. Like I thought I didn't deserve a life as good as they would have given me. Like I didn't earn it. I wouldn't know how to act with nice clothes and a nice school and a nice home. They offered, and I'd be like, no, I don't. It wasn't that like deep down I wanted to. I just felt like I didn't deserve it. I wouldn't know how to deal with it. But I remember one time they picked me up from my grandparents' house, and I had a friend with me actually, but she said something and then I said something, and she turned around from the front seat and like grabbed me by the throat and choked me, and I hit her. And now granted, she left bruises on my throat, and I don't know how this got, I actually did go to school the next day and say something, and they talked their way out of it. I got grounded because I bruised her face when I hit her. Like, and my dad's just letting this go. He'd like slip an extra $5 into my jeans hanging in my closet or something like that. Just made everything okay, And so it was just, you know what I'm saying? There was never that parenting. Like he knew I was being mistreated. Hell, she mistreated him too. And then I don't want to say saving grace, because the only saving grace that ever happened in my life, I think, was joining the Army. But what happened when I was 13, we lived in a trailer. I had come home from school, and there was no notice at the door. So I called, and I'm like, do you just want me to start packing? So I literally start packing up the house, and everybody gets home, they start packing too. But my dad and his girlfriend had nowhere for us to go. So the house that me and my mother lived in, my grandparents had actually bought for her. And whenever she was in her accident, they just let her boyfriend continue to live there until I brought it to their attention that he was cooking methamphetamines there. And then he got kicked out. But then my 2 older brothers, obviously, they never really lasted long with my dad and his daughters. So they just kind of got pushed out on their own when they were teenagers. So they ended up living in that house. So whenever we got evicted from the trailer, I went to go live with my brothers. And my dad and his girlfriend, they stayed, I don't even know where. There was like an old trailer that they used to have that was on some property that they were trying to fix up. And then, her daughters went to live with their dad. So that was like for the summer. And then we come back after the summer. And all this time, my dad's waiting on the settlement from getting hurt at work. He's disabled. And then he finally gets a settlement. He gets like $250,000, which for some broke ass, Missouri rednecks is a lot of money. And, like he, I remember there was a point, like, we're in this double wide now because we're fancy, right? Uh, but, there was a point where she said, "You gotta choose, me or your daughter." And my dad literally chose her. I was 13. I packed a backpack and walked 12 miles to my brother's house, and I just stayed with them.
Oh my God.
And you got a 13-year-old, 21-year-old, and a 23-year-old who never really had any parenting either, just kind of out there figuring it out. And I still did well in school for a couple years. It went, it, that was kind of when it changed as far as like, I guess I found sex and drugs close to that age. I was 13 when I started having sex, and it was kind of one of those like, one, I'm hanging around all these teenagers now. Everybody's having sex. I want to fit in. I want to be part of the group. And then plus I've already been called a whore and everything else under the sun. And I remember thinking in my head, like, why don't I just fucking do it? Just do it. So I did. Like, I like found a guy, and I was like, made a mental note, like, I'm just gonna go have sex with this guy. I'm just gonna lose my virginity, and I did. And that was the worst decision I ever made. But that kind of, I was a kid. Like, my son's 12. He doesn't even notice girls yet. How was I 13 years old having sex? I was 14 when I started doing drugs. And I don't mean like smoking a little weed. I mean, like, if you can think of it, I did it. Like, I don't know how I didn't die of an overdose. Like, it was insane. Like, the things I did at such a young age. And like, I still went to school for a little bit, but then it got to the point to where, like, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have hot water, we didn't have money for food, and I just got pissed off at the world. And in ninth grade, I ended up getting expelled because somebody would look at me wrong and I would just hit them. I just was so mad. Like, I would fight everybody. And about 25 days into ninth grade, after already being suspended a few times, I was fighting this girl, and someone tried to pull me off of her, and I elbowed back, and I ended up breaking a teacher's nose. And I was expelled. Like, couldn't go back to that school at all. I could go to, after when the new semester started, I could go to what was called the alternative school. And I did, but like during that 6 months, I started working, and I started making money, and I started having electricity and food and hot water. So then I go to this alternative school, and I think I lasted about 6 days. And I went from doing college algebra in the 7th grade to the alternative school. There's no options. So they put me in like pre-algebra because that's all there was. So I'm literally in a pre-algebra class with seniors, and like, I already know all this stuff. So it was just, I felt, obviously, I made bad choices to get there. But I just felt it was like a waste of my time. So I was like, what's the point of this? And I remember it was like second period, and I just got up and started walking out. And the teacher's like, where are you going? I'm like, home. And she's like, you can't do that. I'm going to call your dad. I'm like, how do you think I'm getting home? I live 40 minutes from here. Like, Dad, come pick me up. I'll give you a joint, And there's literally like how it happened. Like, you asked me, like, what things did my dad teach me? Oh man. He taught me how to break up weed and weigh it out and sell it and turn a profit. Like, this is the skill set I had growing up. I knew how to survive. I knew the street life. So then, you got a couple years of just really bad decisions, being in situations. I remember this guy I thought I was in love with at 16. He's like, if you love me, you'll let my brother have sex with you too. So like, just those types of situations, like literally, like there'd be like group things. You're just like being passed around, and you just become so sexualized because it's the only attention that you're getting. You don't know what real love is. You don't know what having an emotional connection with somebody is, because you never had it. But like, somewhere in the back of my mind, I always knew that I was better than that. I always knew that I was meant to do more than be another statistic of where I come from. And then I had a friend's mom pass away. She was a crackhead, like, not even joking, like a literal crackhead. And an alcoholic, and she ended up choking on her own vomit in her sleep. And it was somehow like, when the phone call came in, like, I knew before I even answered. But when it became a reality, it was like an epiphany. I knew if I didn't make a decision right then and there to be better, to do something, to get out, I was never going to be better than where I came from. So I made that decision at that moment and I quit everything. So it turns out I was never addicted to drugs. I was addicted to numbing the pain of my life, because I did. I just quit everything. I started working. I had a pretty solid job as a 16-year-old high school dropout. Got a inventory control specialist supervisor job for Joanne Fabric and Crafts. And I did well at that. And they worked with me. They're like, we're only going to, it was a great, I wish I don't remember his name, but whenever he hired me, he was like, I'm only going to do this for you. And it paid me starting at $7.50 an hour. He's like, if you go get your GED. So he gave me a great job. He gave me the time to get my GED. I got my GED in minimum time. I even got like a 2-year thing to where I could have gone to the local community college. I scored so well on my GED exam. And I did for a while, but then I got a thing in the mail. I actually started talking about joining the Air Force, and I had to get a waiver for having a GED, and the recruiter was pretty sure that I was going to get the waiver. And then I got a thing in the mail for the Missouri Army National Guard. It's like, we'll pay you $20,000 to join the Army. I'm like, bye, Air Force, I didn't read the fine print. Let's just put up front. I did not get $20,000, guys. That is not what happened. It was like $10,000 after you complete training, and then $10,000 3 years later, and then that $10,000 after you take taxes come a whopping like $6,000. And then it took so long for them to actually get me the $6,000. I didn't even get it until like I went active duty. Like it took so long for Missouri to get their crap together. So jokes on me, the Army got me, but I don't regret it. But then, I joined the Army and I vowed. It was like an internal decision that I had to make and I chose to make. And sometimes I still choose to make on a daily basis that like, I am going to be a different person. I am going to be somebody I'm proud of. And I think I did really well with that my entire time in the military. I never got in trouble. I think I got like one negative counseling my entire like 14 years in. And I knew I was getting that because I even wrote it. Because I was a staff sergeant promotable and I had a sergeant first class who was my boss, and we did not get along. And I did not agree with him. And I flat out told him, that's fucking dumb. I'm not doing that. And I was like, I'll write my own counseling. So I did well though. But I remember being at basic training. I was 17. I was so young when I joined the Army. Like I had to go to my 18th birthday and count backwards before I could leave for training. And I ended up turning 18 on Family Day. And then I graduated AIT the following day. I just remember like being in there and being 17 and these 20-something, and they're like walking around. Like I remember this one girl, she was like 22. She was like, I'm tough. I can kick anybody's ass. In the back of my head, I'm like, no, I could kick your ass. But I didn't say that because I was choosing to be a better person, right? I just kept my mouth shut, kept my head down, just, charged forward. And that's when I realized that like the military would recognize my hard work. I got promoted to E2 on my 18th birthday. I was the one person selected in my platoon. So my drill sergeant recognized my hard work. That was when I decided to be better. And I think I did well in the Army. And that was like, as soon as we were in red phase, like the first day someone's in my and that was when you realize you're a smart ass without even realizing it. I remember the first time I got yelled at, it was shark attack. They're pulling us off the bus and we're getting put in formation. And I had my drill sergeant was shorter than me, and he had these piercing bright blue eyes. And he'd be like, "Are you staring at my baby blues?" Or he's like looking up at me. I'm like, "No, drill sergeant." He's like, "You're not staring at." I was like, I can't see down that far, drill sergeant." Not the thing to say. It was true, but it's not the thing to say.
That's funny.
But I did really well through the rest of training. But like people are like, "Oh, I want to kill myself. This is so hard." And I'm like, I got hot water, I got food. Well, I had hot water after like the first 3 days. I got food, I got clean sheets, and I'm getting paid to stay in shape, drive big trucks, and blow stuff up. Like this is the best job in the world. And when people ask like, why did you choose MP? Well, what kind of skill set do you think I had? Like, if you can't beat them, join them type mentality, right? Like, I was a really good MP because I could come in and I could just talk to people, like I could sympathize and empathize with everything that they were going through. I'd been in those situations. I've been in the situations where parents are beating the shit out of each other and kids are crying. And like, that was my life. That was what I did. I can come in, I can calm a kid down. I can talk to a parent. I can separate them like, hey, all right, listen. Like, I'm not here to arrest you. I'm not here to ruin anybody's life or career. I'm here to, I want to help you guys out. Let's help you get through the situation. Talk to me. Like, I'm here for you. I can come down onto somebody's level. And I think that made me a good MP. I don't know if the Army knows about everything I went through in my past, but surprise.
Oh my God.
So that was leading up to the Army. Sorry, I just kind of started talking and then just didn't stop, and I'm all over here like waving my hand around.
No, that's actually pretty damn incredible, because you could have chosen so many different paths, but you chose to want to be better and thought that the Army was going to make you better, and then it did.
It did. Yeah, it absolutely did.
And you chose to excel in so many different areas, because then you decided to be a drill sergeant, and that's not for everybody.
I loved it too. Oh God, I loved it. I loved it, and I was good at it. The hardest part for me is when I could see myself in somebody and they wouldn't let me help them. Like, I'm telling you, just get past your mindset. Just decide. It is truly like, you just have to make the decision. Like, it was like flipping a switch. It was like, I am not going to be sad about this anymore. I'm not going to be stressed about this anymore. I'm not going to be that person. Like, I can make that decision. And I did. I'm not saying it was always easy, but I made that decision. And then I stuck with it.
Yeah. So you did 14 years, right?
Just a few days shy, and that was total. I did, as soon as I got to red phase, I'm getting yelled at, but I was like, I want to do this like all the time. Like, this is the best job on the planet, like this is what I want to do. So as soon as I finished training, because I was in the National Guard, I went back and I'm like, look, I want to go active duty. Like, I want to do this full time. And it was, the state or the unit or whatever messed up the paperwork. It took like over a year to go active duty. And so I actually got to keep the first half of my bonus, but they, so I just quit smoking. So I got to chew my nicotine gum. But
that's good.
So I joined in March of 2006, the National Guard. Left for training in like end of May, was in training until October 12th. I know that day exactly because I turned 18 on the 11th. And then I was in the National Guard. I started doing the active duty paperwork right away. I didn't actually get my active duty orders until June of 2007. And that was when I went active duty. So then when you like take that time and do the BASD and move it backwards, my active service date was January 25th of 2007 is how, what I'm saying? How they tack that on, change for time in service or whatever, because the training time counts as active duty time. But my pay entry basic date was March of 2006. And I retired February 20th of 2020. So total service, just a little bit less than a month shy of 14 years.
So what made you want to get out then and not stay until the full 20?
My body hurts.
Oh, yeah. And that's, a lot of people don't know that.
Coming in the Army young, from where I came from, I felt I had a lot to prove, not to my leaders, not to those around me, but to myself. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like being the female that was at the back of the pack. Like, I wanted to be in front of the guys. And some people's bodies can do that. It just took a toll on my body a little bit faster. I had battled with back problems for many, many years, still like avoiding profile, avoiding, being on profile so I don't get med boarded type thing. But then kind of the tipping point was I ended up getting something I had no control over. I couldn't fight it anymore. I got an aneurysm in my right leg. It was called a popliteal venous aneurysm. You probably have better chances of winning the lottery than having this.
Gosh.
I remember there's only like a couple hundred documented cases in medical literature. I remember whenever they first told me that I had that, I was like, no, Fort Leonard Wood's got it messed up. That's not accurate. It's a Baker's cyst or something. Like, there's no way I have that.
Yeah.
And nope, that's what I had. So I had the surgery to remove it. And I'm healing from it and like start trying to work out again. And my leg, so how the doctor explained it to me, like your veins have all these different valves and stuff. Some people have the surgery and can hop right back in it. It doesn't affect anything. Some people don't. Well, for me, the valves in my vein are still working harder after having that repair. So I can't stand too long. I can't sit too long. I can't bend too much, or my leg throbs and swells. Plus it also redemonstrated a little bit. I do have another aneurysm in my leg. It's at 2.9 centimeters right now. It has to be at 3 centimeters to be removed.
God.
My first one was 3 centimeters. This one's at 2.9. So I'll be having surgery again sometime in the future. But secondary repair is going to be a lot more extensive. But it's actually whenever you have an aneurysm, it's in the regulation. If it redemonstrates within 90 days, it is automatic MDRP, which is your medical decision retention point. So I hit MDRP due to the aneurysm in my leg. And then it was like, all right, my back, my neck, every other joint in my body, my mind. No.
And you're how old again?
I'm 32.
So it happens. It happens.
I was going to be in the Army for as long as they would let me. I thought it was going to be 25, 30 years. I made 7 and 12. I thought, I was on track to be a sergeant major one day. I wanted to be a sergeant major. I wanted to lead people. I wanted to show people if I could do it, they could do it. And it just didn't work out. I still made 7 and 12. I remember when I made that list, it was like I was already kind of like, should I get out? Should I not get out? And when I actually validated that board file, I didn't update anything. I just validated what I'm going to tell you, it was not even accurate. And then I still got picked up. I was 260 out of 263. I remember like my friend called me and he's like, I just saw the pre-release and you're on it. I'm like, no way. I just started laughing. I was like, I didn't even try to be on it, So that kind of like reignited that fire again. I was like, all right, I'm in it. And then of course, when I remake the decision, like I'm in it for life, boom, knee aneurysm, you're out. I did start playing the lottery after that, just so I haven't won yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
But even so, you said you wanted to show people that you could do it or that it can be done. But don't you think that you've done that though? You've still done that?
Yeah, I think so. In a way.
Yeah.
I say people. I don't even know if I wanted to show people. Maybe I just wanted to show myself.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like I'm the youngest of 3, and it's so frustrating because me and my brothers were like, we're never going to be our parents. They're my parents. They're so similar to my parents right now. Like I don't even have a relationship with either of my brothers.
Oh.
One of my brothers, the most I talk to him is when he's cussing me out for calling child protection services on him, which I don't understand, Missouri. Why have we not taken his kids away yet? Because it's not safe where they're at. But like it's so sad, but it is what it is. I wish somebody would have called. And not even that, like I don't even know how I did it. Like I don't even know manipulation. I don't know if manipulation is the right word. Like I knew at a young age, like what was happening, the stuff I was seeing, it was not right. But I didn't talk about it because if I got taken away, like the unknown is worse than the known, But in hindsight, I always say hindsight's 2020. Like God, I wish I would have just lived with my grandparents because my life would have changed for the better at such an earlier age. But like if the teachers and counselors would have just been more persistent and stopped letting a 8, 9, 10-year-old like outmaneuver them, like you knew what was happening. Like, but then again, systems change. I think schools are better nowadays at spotting that stuff than they were then. But Like I said, I don't regret it. I think things would have been differently, but I have what I have now. You know, when I left for the Army, I left a house that was infested with cockroaches. I used to have to sleep with a sheet over my head so they didn't crawl in my ears. Where the floorboards were rotting out, where, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was disgusting. And then at 24 years old, I bought my first house by myself.
Oh
Brand
my gosh.
And then this office you see me sitting in with my college degrees and my retirement certificate behind me. Guess who built that wall in her basement? I did. You know?
See, that's so amazing. Like, oh my God. I'm sitting here thinking about my son who's lost. And I haven't really talked about this to the world. So when you hear this, I hope he's home, but he's not right now. But I think about how he's out there in the world trying to just make it. And then I see you and I'm like, but you made it. I guess it just depends on the decisions you make and how you want to be as a person or how you figure out life. And I don't know. It just, hearing you share this is, how do I put it? It's worked. It didn't work the way that we had planned or intended, but now look at you. You've accomplished so much and you're here now and you've done all this stuff on your own by yourself. And you even sat here and said, I don't regret it because now you're in that.
Degree is going to go.
Exactly. Right there.
that spot right there I leave empty because that's I'm in grad school right now. So I dropped out of high school, but I'm going to have an MBA. So
it can happen. It can happen. Yeah. And people need to reach out to you to get that encouragement in those words.
You know, I make a decision every single day to get up, work hard, to strive to be better, to strive to be more. There's a Bruno Mars song. I love Bruno Mars, by the way. I got a story to tell about that in a minute, whenever me and my husband renew our vows next year. But there's another Bruno Mars song called Billionaire. I say millionaire because I don't think I need billions. I think I'll be happy with millions. You know, but I'm in an industry right now that creates more millionaires than any other industry. So like every morning I come down and I sit in my office and I turn on my computer and then I turn on the TV behind me and I put on YouTube and the first song I listen to is Billionaire. And then I think, I want to be a millionaire so fucking bad, you know? And like, that's my anthem. That's what gets me pumped up because like the only thing that's going to get me there is me, you know? Now, granted, like my husband supports me, you know, my friends support me. So like I do have a support system and I think that's important for anybody who's going through a hard time. Yeah. But, you know, like realize too, like, even if you don't think you have a support system, like you do, like you're part of my support system, you know, and it's not like we talk every day. We went years without talking, you know, and then you reach out and it's like, yes, like somebody could reach out to me that I don't know at all. I will be your support system. You do not have to go through this alone. If I can survive it, you can survive it, you know. And then there's a book series. And I know there's been like some debate on whether what was said in the book is accurate or not. It doesn't matter. The story still helped me, that I read when I was in middle school. It was a child called It, a lost man named It.
Yeah.
And remember, like that helped put it in perspective to me because like no matter how bad I had it, somebody had it worse. I wasn't getting stabbed. I wasn't getting forced to eat dirty diapers or sleep in a cot sitting on my hands or, you know, like. But if I can make it through, so can you. If he can make it through, so can you know?
Yeah. That's incredible.
Sorry, I can go off on 20 different tangents.
No, but it's all, those books. Yes, I actually just saw a Facebook post the other day where someone had shared those books. And I was like, I totally remember those. And then you just brought it up. So those books, absolutely, they're so heartbreaking, but yet inspiring in kind of a way because he talks about how, you know, now look where he's at and now look where you're at. So
not done, but I'm on my way.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I think that's the important part is that you keep showing up. You keep showing up no matter what. And you have
granted, I have to take like it's not always sunshines and rainbows. Like,
yeah.
Even in my new job, like, you know, something like nothing could happen. Just sometimes when you've gone through as much crap as I've gone through, you just have a day where it's like, I'm not doing anything today, and you do, like, you fall into a funk, but you have to be conscious to get yourself out of that. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm going to give myself a day to
Yeah.
just sit around in pajamas and watch Netflix and eat junk food. But then my ass is going to be on it tomorrow, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So it's okay to fumble, but you have to keep moving forward at some point. So don't allow yourself to sit down and wallow too long.
No, you're right. And I like to say that it's okay to not be okay. If you need
Yeah.
to take a break, step back, start again tomorrow, because I think we've put so much pressure on ourselves that we just end up exploding. We get overwhelmed, we break down, we shut down, just all of it. So I think it's just important to learn how to give ourselves grace. Sometimes it's going to be hard, but
Yeah.
small steps, I think, like you said. So what advice would you give to somebody who's in that environment right now, who doesn't know where to turn, who just wants to give up, who
Reach out, don't be afraid. There's so many avenues and resources out there. There's a wild ride called life. There's this podcast, The Truths We Hide. There's, you could reach out to me through Facebook. You could, one of the other people who kind of inspired me to get on this podcast and share my story, Sean Tobias Ambrose. I don't know if I said his name right, probably not right, but the Not All Ghosts Die. Like, there's so many people out there who are willing to help. Do a quick Google search, just search for, like, I'm not mentally okay, I need help. Maybe if you don't want to call that suicide hotline, I get it. I've been suicidal. I didn't want to call the suicide hotline. I think they're great, and I appreciate that avenue is there for somebody who uses it. But if you want to talk to somebody else, like, I'll take your call. You'll take their call. There are people out there. I don't have to know you to help you. And I guarantee there's so many other people that feel the same way. So don't be afraid to reach out to anybody. Because if you come at me sincerely and say, I just need someone to talk to, I will drop everything I'm doing and be there for you. Hands down. I've had, right around the time I was getting out of the Army, I had a soldier, like, say some things to me that, I don't want to put someone else's business out there too much, but, she was going through a rape situation, and she said, dropped everything. I told my husband, like, I gotta go. I want to sit with her while she's in the victim advocate's office. Like, she wants to be her support. I will be there. Like, doesn't matter. Like, I will be there for you in any way that I can. If you want me to tell my story 100 times, if you want me to just sit there and listen, if you want me to chime in, like, whatever you need, I'll be there. Just don't be afraid to reach out. You do not have to go through it alone.
That's so important. It is. It's so important for people to know that there are others out there that have gone through it or similar situations. So what's your next plan besides your master's degree? What do you want to do next?
I want to be a millionaire within 10 years. Why not? Guess what? I'm gonna be. Like, I will be.
You're
because
putting it out there right now.
To do it.
Yes. You're putting it out there.
I'm putting it out there. I want to be a millionaire in 10 years.
Okay.
Rather than, closer to the 10 years. But
yeah. Okay. All right. So in 10 years.
I want a mansion with a pool so I can swim in my clean pool and look at the lake.
Right. Oh, that'd be so nice. Do you still want to stay in Missouri?
I do. My lakeside mansion will, be part of the Redneck Yacht Club and go to the Ozarks. Maybe I'll just behind my house. Who knows? Only time will tell. I want to have a back porch that has a swirly slide coming off the back porch to get down to the backyard.
How fun is that? It's gonna be like the coolest house on the block.
I want to have a house that has ensuite bathrooms for every bedroom.
Oh yeah, that's fancy.
I want a pool house. Like that's what I want. That's my 10-year plan.
Okay, I love it.
After it, but I'm definitely going to get an MBA.
Hey, you know what? Not many people can do that these days. So you do it. Coming from where you grew up until now, the person that you are now, the family you built, the life you built. Nothing's impossible. So I can't wait to see you do it. I am going to, so you want people to reach out to you through Facebook Messenger?
Yep, you can just Paige Pfeiffer. It's probably the best way to reach out to me. And then that way, I don't know if I want to give out too much personal information, but I did open my Facebook up to where it's public now. So you can reach out to me through Facebook.
Okay.
Is probably the best way. And then, we could always work on other avenues if someone reaches out to me that way.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Are we hitting our time? Because I know there was still more I wanted to talk about.
We could keep going if you want to talk about more.
No, it's fine. Like we could do more.
We could do part 2.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
I told you I start to ramble sometimes. Because there is one big thing I do want to get out there, and I think that would be like a whole different
Do you want to do that? Do you want to do that? Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do part 2?
We'll probably do a part 2.
Okay.
I'd do a part 2.
Okay.
I'm talking to you,
So you guys heard it here. You need to stay tuned for part 2 because there's going to be one. So I will put her Facebook link in the show notes, the podcast guide. Make sure you share this out. Make sure you follow her. And yes, stay tuned for part 2. So thank you so much for being here, Paige. Seriously, I am so proud of how far you have come. So stay tuned for part 2. I'm so glad that I was able to be this small part because I had no idea. So
it's bigger than you know.
Thank you. All right, you guys, stay tuned.